Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Good, so welcome back. I'm going to continue to straight on looking at the material. So here I've got some various canon material to show to you and to review some useful things here. So Access to Insight, a majorly good resource made by Thanissaro Bhikkhu that is a compendium of the main teachings written in smooth, easily readable English, easy to use, free to download, and quite easy to get around to look at what's on there. Digital, and then the digital Pāli Reader, free. It's free to download. It has the entire Tripitaka Pāli, but is easy to read translations of individual words, and it's good for use to learn the superstructure of the books, which I'll do now. King of Melinda's Questions, free to download, PDF, very useful, gives you a concise, easy to read version of the teachings. Visuddhimagga and Visuddhimagga, two related books that have very similar content, divided up into Sila, Samadhi, Panya. That's morality section, concentration and meditation section, and wisdom section, and they are more or less manuals on how to meditate. Very, very clear instructions. So I want to look into some of those. I want to show you where they, where the material comes from. So this is the digital Pāli Reader. Happens to be just showing some of the last things I've been doing. Here's the Digha Nikaya. Here's the Majjhima Nikaya. Here's the Samyutta Nikaya and Anguttara Nikaya. So all these books, Digha means long, so long stories. Majjhima means medium length. Samyutta means grouped stories. Anguttara are numbered stories, a list of numbered stories. Khuddaka is a collection of many treasurable verses and stories and legends and so on. So in the Digha Nikaya, I'd just like to show you also something else there. Here, Visuddhimagga. So after we have the Samyutta, the Anguttara, the Khuddaka, and the Abhidhamma, then we have the Visuddhimagga. So that's where the Visuddhimagga fits in, which we want to do later on. But where did it come from? And a lot of people dispute it because they just say it was added quite later on. So I just want to clarify where it comes from. The Digha Nikaya, because it's long stories and includes many very famous episodes of the Buddha's life, like the Buddha's death, like some of his main early teachings, actually includes an early version, and it's found here. So I'm in the third book of the Digha Nikaya. So they're divided into, the first one has 13 stories in, the second one has 10 stories in, and the third block of the Digha Nikaya has 11 stories in. And the last two are called the Sangiti Sutta, Dasutara Sutta. They're called sister suttas. They have, these two stay together. It's the first time that the teaching was done in lists that are very clearly listed, and the teacher at that time was the Venerable Sariputta. The Venerable Sariputta was excellent at teaching in an analytical way. In an analytical way, as opposed to his companion, who was a bit more into teaching using magical powers. So there's two. One of them is called Mahamoggallana, very skilled in psychic abilities, and the other one is Sariputta. These are the two chief disciples of the Buddha. So Sangiti Sutta, I show you here, is the listed, numbered suttas. here. So this means ones, twos, threes, fours, fives, six, sevens, eights, nines, tens. So a list of things that starts with one, a list of things that starts with two, that the Buddha taught. So, for example, in the group of the tens, all the things that are ten, or for example, all the fours, chatukan, it will have the four foundations of mindfulness. In the fives, it will have the five aggregates, and the five something else, and the five something else, and the five something else. So this sort of grouping of lists happens. In the tens, they have the 10 kasinas, for example. So this was the origin of the Abhidhamma, which is the teaching, and it was also the origin of making block lists like that, and that's what the Visuddhimagga was made out of. It's a very famous book. So those two are worth knowing that they're the origin ones, in case you have any doubts or questions about the origin of these. The Sangiti Sutta, Sutta, Sutta. So they were compendiumed in together, and then they were turned into another book down here called the Visuddhimagga in the Kudita Nikāya. Kudita Nikāya includes things like Dhammapada and the Hungry Ghost stories, the Petavatu, and other such things like the Terigata, the stories of the enlightened nuns, the Jataka stories, the past lives of the Buddha as animals on his way, the King Milinda questions are in there, and there we have Patis, that one there, just above Milinda questions, called the Visuddhimagga, and it's the teachings on discriminations. Now the first one here, Jnana Kata, is very important, and it includes the jnanas, the knowledges here. And youth, if you meditate to any extent in the style of the Burmese people, they start talking about this. Udayapayana, Banga Nupassanyana, Adinava Jnana, Sankarupeka Jnana, and then Gotrapu Magga. That's Nirvana. The fruit afterwards, Phala Jnana, Vimutti, freedom. So it's all about, everything that is about this one here. And then Pachavekana, which you review what happened afterwards. So all the meditation, Sila, Samadhi and Dhamma, all leads up to this. Arising and passing away knowledge, seeing things are in flux, seeing they're in change. Udayapaya. Banga means, well, that's scary. The ego feels threatened about that. It means everything that you desire is also like that. So even if you get it, it'll fall away. It's like smoke, like ashes, like you were saying, like holographic bubbles that disappear away. So if everything's like that, what's going to happen to me? Etc. So the fear starts to come in. Because the fear comes in, actually we're missing one there, Bayayana, which links onto that. Banga means that you see that things like that are all falling away, that they're all going to come to an end. Banga. And then Baya means the fear because of that. Adinava means things are dangerous then. You know, you can't hang on to anything without either it or you is going to disappear one day. So Adinava is the danger in things. And then also the dangers, other dangers like danger of karma, danger of bad karma comes up, and you start to see the cause and effect results. That means, like, and for a typical adinava, the dangers are the danger of your own self-criticism. If you do something and you break the precepts and you go, oh no, I've had an affair with someone, I'm never going to be able to live with myself. It's the danger of that. Or the danger of your friends phoning up saying, you've just done something to her. Boof, and get blamed by friends. So these two dangers. 3, the danger of the law. Ding dong, the police are here. They want to work with you, blah, 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 blah. Is consequences. So if you do things on the unwholesome side and ignore the don't do it and the breaks and everything, consequences. So not only that, the 4th adinava, karma. So that one people often don't take into consideration. Sankarupeka. And then these ones here that I pointed out there, Visuddhimagga, Phala, Vimutti, Pachavekana, are all about the mind finding Nibbana and going to Nibbana and coming back. Normally the mind is always looking for material objects, people, attractive things, attractive events, time, future, past. And then there's this other thing, Nibbana. If it takes that for this one moment, you become stream entrant. So you're on your way. Yeah? So that's where all of that comes from. That's called the group of jnana, knowledge. specific kind of knowledge. It's just not any knowledge. You know, it's not just the knowledge of how, you know, how to cook or to speak or something. So that's what's that's all about. So it's a very important thing to know. Is the Visuddhimagga, and the Visuddhimagga was the foundation, that one, for the Visuddhimagga. So let's have a quick look at the Visuddhimagga. Yeah. And the Visuddhimagga. Okay, let's have a quick look at it. It's full of Theravada stuff, jammed full of it. All the things that sort of like people come up against. Quite difficult to work with these PDFs when they're a bit out of control. Yeah. So, talking about the 3 trainings, the meaning of training, how to remove the impurity.
Fascicle.
Fascicle 1. Copy 1. The notice. This before they had fax machines, I think. Some scribed it out. I don't know the answer to that. That's not in the knowledges. The knowledge of fascicles. It's a bit like a bicycle or a fax machine. So that's not really doing. This just jumps around on its own. So I'm sorry, I apologise about it. It's a bit difficult to do anything at the moment because I'm relying on PDFs. 16 ways of training in mindfulness of breathing, 3 trainings, 4 foundations of mindfulness, mindfulness of death, similes that are really useful, like you were talking about, like similes of foam, means like foam on bubbling water, simile of a bubble, exactly what you were talking about when you saw that picture of things arising and passing away and you don't feel solid anymore. That's precisely what is meant by that. It's jumped by itself off somewhere else, never mind. So fascicle is a PDF that has a mind of its own. Simile of the mango, so lots of picture images to help teach. The similes of the boat, the lamp and the sun, very useful kind of thing. So this type of teaching is very useful, and then some very key things have been pulled out. What are the 4 corruptions? What are the 4 knots? What are the 4 floods? What are the 4 yokes? In early schools, these things were the teachings. So what is meant by the 4, when you have the 4 corruptions, which are hatred, greed, delusion and fear. So when they when they bind you, they're the knots. The floods is when they're overcome you. The 4 yokes means you're bound to them like this. The 4 clingings and so on. Including, so this is one of these numbered lists that starts with 3, goes to 4, goes to 5, 5 kinds of meanness, 5 hindrances, 6 roots, 7 latent conditions, all these, so very useful stuff to know. The 10 fetters, you've been mentored on that. And so very, very deep and broad and colourful teachings, and nice and easy ones to read, interspersed again with similes, so you know what they're talking about when they give a simile of the burning city or the fiery sparks or such kinds of things, or of a boat, of a lamp, of the sun, and so on. Okay, so Visuddhimagga, nice and easy to read. Now, where was that one? Basic access, mastering. I'll come back to debate, questions. Vimutti, part of purification. So this is the Visuddhimagga. This one's translated, appears to be by Mara. I think someone said this is Mara is playing up on the on the machine here. A part of purification, and I also want to just nudge down, not fly away. Thank you.
Maybe page up and page down.
Yeah, but that's the page. So the next page won't be able to show you. I want to show you what's on that bottom half of this picture. So. How do you do that? Any suggestions? I want to show you what they're holding.
If you zoom in to like 75%.
Oh, like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's what I want to show you. Is like the palm leaves.
Palm leaves.
This is King Asoka's daughter travelling from India and giving the monks the Visuddhimagga written down on the palm leaves. So this book is structured Sila, Samadhi and Panya section. So almost like everything you wanted to know about Sila, which means Sila means morality. So it's in detail when it says don't kill. You want to know details about it written in there. For every one of the 5 precepts, the 8 precepts, and they have 3 more on. Then they added another 1 to make it a 9th precept, so you loving kindness meditation as well as doing the first 9. 10 precepts become a samanera, like me, or you increase that with the 75 minor rules of polite training, and then add some more duties, and then you become 119 precepts. And then in the Buddhist days there were more or less 150 for the monks actually. 75 of these polite ones got added on a bit later on. Bhikkhuni started to go off in the forest, they got trouble from farmers who attacked them and hassled them and stalked them and stuff, and so they added on more for their protection up until 311. So the Bhikkhunis had 311 to keep to. So they were about very, very tiny minor things. Wouldn't mind having a look at that as well. So this is just to introduce you to these 2 very important books, the Path of Purification, the Visuddhimagga, which much meditation teaching is refers to now, including another one that I want to show you. So as you see, the book is divided up into part 1, virtue, sila. Is that as focused as it could be? Part 2, concentration. Yeah, it is. Concentrate samadhi just means like meditation instructions. So here we have the Earth Casino meditation, which I taught on the retreat. So the Earth Casino and so on like this. So all the details about what's a faulty monastery, like they're doing too much construction or they're doing too much talking there and so on. The remaining casinos, the water, fire, air casino, blue casino, taking a foulness as a meditation subject, so taking bodies that have been recently drowned, all bloated and swollen up or something, or the 6 recollections. So it goes into detail about samatha meditation, and then it goes into wisdom. And it's also got about superpowers here, like these are super mundane, super normal practices, which if you do enough samatha tend to develop. And then the different kinds of supernormal powers as well, they're all in there. So it makes a quite interesting read, like, penetrating other people's minds, the divine eye, seeing the passing away of beings and so on, all sorts of different things, interesting to read. And then the Panya section, so all about dependent origination, the 5 aggregates in detail, and then dealing on and on with the deals of jnana. But they got very clear exposition on dependent origination. So that's something I want to go into now. I think that's it. You get the idea. It's very detailed, it's very thorough, and it's very systematic. Just on here, the jnanas here, knowledge of rising and falling, knowledge of dissolution. Well, the ones I was just telling you about there, the jnanas, they're all covered there. And there it is. So, but a very long book, nearly 1,000 pages. Very briefly, another similar book, but a modern version, is this Mastering the Hardcore Teachings of the Buddha by Daniel Ingram, not the composer of Little Pony music. This, and for example, I read the other day that he outlined 30 models where people think they're going on a meditation retreat in order to get super fast fist of steel or a yoga butt, or perfect their emotions, or perfect their aura, or love models. They're going to walk around and everyone's going to love them, and that's what they think that they're going to get out of it. Or that they're going to become extinct, or they're going to have perpetual bliss. All these different kind of models that people go on. I think it's a very useful psychological model. People just meditate only to deal with their stuff, and they end up they're spending the whole time psychologizing and analysing, and not meditating at all. They're just carrying on, sort of thinking more and more and analysing, not necessarily following the meditation instructions, or self-hypnotising and kind of also suggesting themselves into having a perfect perfectly happy relationship with their body and all their knots and stuff, or whatever it is they think they're doing. God models that involve perceiving becoming one with God, or even becoming a god or a goddess themselves. You know, so people think that's what they're supposed to be doing. Or powers models, like thinking about a walk through walls, or fly, or so on, this kind of thing, gaining in psychic abilities. So this is a very good read. I recommend it. Again, it's done in morality, concentration, and wisdom. It's very thorough and very clear. I'll give you a quick listen about how he sounds, so that you can. Oh, it's a good dude. Yes, here we go. Here we go. No, wait. Oh, wait. Never mind. Yeah, never mind. Okay, so we will just listen to a couple of other things. Alright, so there's the Visuddhimagga and the Vimuttimagga and their origin and where they come from. So, the slides which tell you a little bit about dependent origination, and slides to share. Let's have a quick look at this. When you break things down into 5 elements of experience, the object that you look at, so it's a pink Porsche, and then you get your perception of it, it's really desirable, and then you get your intention, I'm going to steal it because no one's looking, and then you get your effort to do it, and then you get the result. So this is one analysis which we covered, which is you. So the object, the perception, the intention, the effort, and the result. So those phenomena have a relationship to each other as well. The object and the perception might arise up together, or the object might have caused the perception. And this relationship between object and perception has a name. Some things rise, the perception wouldn't have arisen if there wasn't an object there. So these have a name, and I covered those briefly with these 24 causal relationships. So we're going to go on. This simple way of seeing things, that there's an object, like it's a naked woman washing at a well, and one's walking along, so should he look or shouldn't he look? And if he does, perception will arise, intention will arise, effort will arise, you're going to hide behind a bush and peek. So, result will happen, he gets caught by a husband and the husband kills him or something. So like the analysis of events, analysis of experience has a mode of being analysed. So that's the first thing. When it's done simply like that, it's the same way that they look at the monks' rules. When you turn it into a circle, it starts to look like something called the dependent origination. And each of these has a name which is called a footstep, pada. So perception is one step. Because of that, the other footstep can happen. Because there's misperception, actually the monk was looking for a turtle that he lost. The husband went, "You're looking at my wife." It was a misperception. He killed the monk. Is he in the wrong or the right? So those kind of questions start to come out. So misperception starts to cause the next thing, and the next thing is dependent on misperception. And in this case, so there's a mental, means like an idea. So misperception is, it's 1 o'clock, you know, so it's not, it's a wrong perception. So an idea arises, a mental object. Or it's 1 o'clock and there's a car outside, whatever. There's a material object, there's lunch. So the two things are linked. And therefore, because of the misperception, the state arises. So the state that we saw before. So, dependent on seeing the neighbour, blah blah blah, doing such and such over there, jealousy arises based on misperception, for example. So these two arise dependent. but they're both dependent at that moment on this. Yeah? The way it starts to work. Awareness of the 6 doors has to be there. If you were blind, the pink Porsche wouldn't have even existed for you. So you need the 2 eyes, you need the 2 ears, you need the nose, you need the tongue, you need the skin of the body. You need a brain and a working mind. So, but awareness is rapidly scanning between all of them. So that's called awareness, vijnana. And it's going around the 6 sense doors, and there's contact being made all the time. If there's good perception, not misperception, mindfulness and wholesome states, intention, attention and aiming goes onto wholesome objects. So it might be a Buddha Rupa, and you just think, I'm going to start meditating every Thursday afternoon. Can we start to meditate soon? Like that. So intention governed by perception, attention driven to the object with such and such a state of mind with it aimed, with contentment arises in that case. Contact is there. The feelings arise depending on it. So you might see the Buddha Rupa and you just feel inspired. You see the content of the smile on the Buddha's mouth, the nice calm eyes, and you wish to be like that and so on. So reasonably wholesome state arises. Dependent on those, craving and grasping does or doesn't arise. And these 3 arise codependent on each other, simultaneously with each other. So there are those 24 conditions. There's a name for the way that these arise all together. So that's what that 24, those are the kind of things those 24 relations relate to. The way that when there's misperception, it causes this to arise, that causes that to happen, and makes these 2 happen, which forces this to happen again. And the way that that's linked to this, the way that all have a name for it, the way they're linked together is called this matrix of 24 conditions that, if it's nicely understood, comfortably, gradually understood, it can settle down to understand the nature of the way things cause each other to happen. When there's craving and grasp, so that the grasping is the object which is grasped. Say like it's a pink Porsche. That's in the mind, it's like not let go of it, it's obsessing about it. Someone goes home and they've got photos on their wall of a pink Porsche, whatever, they're grasping the object, it's not let go of. So letting go of it means that this and this would stop. But while it's grasped, this emptiness, inner emptiness, starts to happen. The inner emptiness which creates the desire to own, to be separate from the object, causes the agitation and the unmindfulness in the present moment, the discontented with what actually is and what we have. So this causes this, and this one's called the karma vatu. This one is called the kilesa vatu. Kilesa is defilement, so this is the round of defilement. And when you hear the term samsara, of rebirths, this refers to this. The way that when this is spinning or active, this is forcing the unwholesome mind states to uncome, which make to become, and they're always separate from their object. So it creates future, distressful futures, empty present moments, wishing the past was back again and wishing the future was full of object. So it creates this unhappiness. So the unhappiness that causes is the resultant of this. And if we're in a habit of being like that, when we die, we have rebirth. If you've already stopped this turning and project, the turning, you do that through the jnanas, so 4 jnanas. So the resultant in the future will be birth. And if you have birth, there's no escaping illness, whether it's bronchitis or headache or kidney failure or period pains or whatever it is, there's itching, scratching, everything. Everyone will always have some form of illness at some point. And inevitably, if you have birth, you'll have aging. Inevitably, if you have aging, you have pain and loss, separation from a beloved object. And inevitably, you have death. Natural law. And we've already been born, so we're already in this. But if we don't get born again, it won't happen again. Something like that. people used to come to my teacher and say, I'm meditating, I've got pain in my knees. He said, well, if you didn't have any legs, you wouldn't have any pain. Let me think about that. Don't get them again. So, relations between perception and material object. If we didn't have the misperception that we want those crystals, we wouldn't have the grasping. Empty our bags. So without the grasping, we wouldn't have the ego reaction. Without the ego reaction, it's mine, it's yours, mine, and so on. We wouldn't have the things. These are divided into time periods. Perception and those mind states is active in the past. So previously there was a such and such a state. In the passive present, you have the resulting effect. So it means like we're downstairs. We say, let's go upstairs to do this. We're here. So this is the result of that. So previous intentions are always pushing up and arising in the present moment. But they arise in the present moment, just happen. What we do about them, that's the next step. This one. So with the next step, with what's happening, we create karma. So we've been creating karma. We're getting the result of the karma that we made. We're making more. Made, receiving, making. Like that. And there's going to be more in the future. There's going to be a spring, there's going to be a summer, there's going to be an autumn, there's going to be futures. We're going to be waking up on and on and on. And what we do now, what we're receiving now is the result of what we did, and what we're doing now is creating what we're going to be having in the future. The active present. Okay, I don't think we need to do that one. Let's very quickly go through this. A few things to point out. This is about perfections. The 10 in the Theravada and the 6 in the Mahayana. The Mahayana called them Paramita, and the Theravada called them Parami. So very briefly what they mean, and just as you can see, many of them are duplicated. And then the Theravada has additional ones. These were what the Buddha to be was perfecting before he became a Buddha. So the perfection of dana, charitable giving of material objects and immaterial phenomena. Giving. Secondly, morality, the perfecting of morality. So getting it as good as it gets as far as morality goes. And then Shanti, patience, and with the Theravada, we have it down here. Sorry, here we go. Kanti and Shanti, patience. So the perfection of patience, which happens a lot with meditation, a lot with understanding the dependent origination, so that we can get contentment and calm with any conditions and sustain through them. So the Theravada, Nekama is abandoning. So it's very closely aligned with dana, and there's lots of fine lines where if you relinquish something, like I just abandon my laptop, I abandon it, or if you give it. So there's a lot of fine lines there where if something is just abandoned, or whether it's deliberately transferred to someone. There's a lot of fine lines there. Giving up of many things, the giving up of household life, the giving up of a house, the giving up of deliberate giving up of something you treasure as well. That can be relationships, it can be people, it can be objects, it can be many things. It can be skills, it can be loves, like you're going to love music, yes, but I give it up, I sacrifice it in order to develop something like that. Panya and pranya, wisdom, so the cultivation and the perfection of wisdom which culminates in Nibbana. Through those stages that we saw, the 16 jnanas. So jnana is the wisdom which leads to Nibbana. So it's not just knowledge, as in general knowledge. It's not like the whole of Wikipedia. It's only relating to insight into suffering. Virya, the perfection of effort and intentional will, or energetic use of effort. So Kanti we covered. Jhana, meditation of jhana. Satya, truthfulness, honesty and truthfulness, the perfection of that, and learning about what that means. And also not only truthfulness, but satya means the Four Noble Truths as well, the Arya Satya, the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, like insight into the perfection of understanding of that, what that means when mind meets matter, when matter meets matter, when mind meets mind. What's dukkha? What's the meaning of dukkha when they contact each other? What is craving? What actually is craving, and what's its relationship to this dukkha? What's that about? Why do we constantly keep having something contacting the inside of the eyeball, inside of the ear? Why? How does that arise? How does that relate to emotions? Why do we crave? Why? How? So insight into these truths and how the path of Eightfold Path rises to perfection in meditation, with wisdom through samadhi onto the whole right livelihood to attain nirvana. Adhitthana, the perfecting of determination. So you can predetermine your meditation, you can determine and you can achieve what you wish to achieve. Perfection of loving kindness. That's two ways. One is into jhana, and you perfect radiating loving kindness, and the other one is to perfect it in the Brahmavihāra practice, which I'll explain in a moment, in the divine dwellings, where it has to cooperate also with upekkha, and upekkha is the perfection of equanimity. So when we perfectly understand about the law of karma, if we ever can get to that stage, upekkha arises where we can see things as they are and understand the law of karma at work in all lives, in all places, in all planes, in all past history and perfection. This is what the Buddha attained, was this perfection. So these are the 10 perfections which were perfected by the Bodhisattva up until he became the Buddha, and then they all were perfected, all in one. So 6 and 10 in the Theravada, 6 in the Mahayana. Yeah? Yeah, good. This is an important thing here. I would like to briefly do this. This is a quick joke, just to lighten up.
Nothing.
I'm getting exactly what he always wanted, nothing. I was waiting for someone to come visit one time in Kuala Lumpur, and they came by GPS driving their car. And they didn't know this, but they had their handbag on them, and they'd taken out the GPS and put it in. They came in and they bowed down, and this voice went, "You have reached your destination." Where come from? So it's like a bit like that. How to get where you already are. Just very quickly to sum up this, because I think it's a very important thing about the Four Brahmavihāras. And the Four Brahmavihāras are loving kindness. A vihara is a dwelling place. So if you can stay in loving kindness with equanimity, loving kindness towards all beings, then it's a safe place to dwell, as opposed to falling into anger and hatred and irritation. Then the next one is compassion. So knowing and seeing that every single living being, in every direction, in all planes, suffers, so that we can cause compassion to always arise. So metta, loving kindness, and compassion, karuna, have a strong relationship. And we're going to talk about the interrelationship of these. The next one is mudita, which is the total opposite of jealousy. Jealousy, you see someone else's success, they've got a nice house, and they're furious, they're angry, and you feel bad because someone else is successful. So mudita, joy at another person's success, is this third dwelling place where whenever you see well-being or so on, you feel this mood of sadhu is like, I'm happy at your success. Even the fact that we're studying Dhamma feels sort of like, this, or for the Philippines, joy arises up. So that's the third one. And the fourth one is equanimity, upekkha, which is just the knowledge that everything is fine exactly the way it is, and all things are well. So because all of these come closer to these divine states and closer to assisting the path, especially equanimity, because it's part of the Four Brahmavihāras. It's the last jhanic factor, the highest, purest jhanic factor, and it's also the point of jnana, sankha upekkha jnana, which is the last jnana before the mind takes to nirvana. as its object. So they all come together with upekkha. You can't have enough equanimity, basically. So, in brief, the way that the relationships correlate is discussed on this discussion by Thanissaro Bhikkhu on Access to Insight. And I really recommend it. I'll quickly have a look through this. Time's a bit limited. So, unbounded love guards compassion against turning into partiality. So compassion just only for my pets, only for my pet. Never mind the guard and his divorce problem. I don't mind. You only focus on yours and what's partial, which might. I only look after Buddhists. I don't know anyone else. That's partiality. So if we went to the typhoon zone, everyone should be equally suffering. So you look after them all. You don't only look after us. So unbounded love protects the karuna. So they should all dwell together and are extensions of each other in a way. Yeah. Love imparts the equanimity, its selflessness, boundless nature, and its fervour. Strengthening its power of keen penetration. So equanimity can fall away into indifference if we're not careful. But metta has this colour to it. It's love, and it's got a human feel to it. So it gives, like giving of food, giving of gifts, giving of kindness, like that. It's a very warm quality. So equanimity can, if we're not careful, if it's unstable, it slips into indifference. So it helps that, prevents that happening. This is the way that the Brahmavihāras co-support each other and strengthen each other, like four molecules of water, very, very strongly bound. Compassion prevents love and sympathetic joy from forgetting that while both are enjoying or giving temporary and limited happiness, there still exists at that time most dreadful states of suffering in the world. So we can do metta, and I'll buy myself a few CDs. I'll really love myself and look after everything and the neighbours as well. And you can just get on a high, and then you see the poor children begging, or then you see like old people, or then you see the animals suffering. So it prevents this happening. When joy starts to arise, we can forget everything that's bad in the world and just go off on a colourful party route if we're not careful. Because love and sympathetic joy can easily go that way, and so they get unstable. Compassion reins them in. So you're not only thinking about your career success and the success of the company, but poor people, but old people, this kind of thing. So it gives it an expansion to the Four Brahmavihāras. Which is basically what it goes on to say. Compassion prevents love and sympathetic joy from turning into states of self-satisfied complacency within a jealously guarded petty happiness. So this is how the maturity of them works. So if that happens, it will prevent them from getting, this is what is in the world, which is boundless state. Boundlessness is the aim of the Four Sublime States, absolutely unlimited. Quick some more, but I recommend you to go into this on yourself. Compassion guards equanimity from falling into cold indifference. Sympathetic joy holds compassion back from becoming overwhelmed by the self of the joys, world suffering. Sympathetic joy. So you get your Beckhams, and they want to do compassionate work, good, but they also should have the joy of success of career, that they feel wholesome and well and happy. Don't want to just sort of be totally distressed and overwhelmed by the suffering in the world. So sympathetic joy needs to be there to give enough fullness and battery charge to the life, so that you can do your compassionate work for the HIV and then smile and walk on, without feeling bad about it, and not be drowning in depression. Yeah, keeps compassion away from melancholic brooding, because if you just become too overwhelmed with compassion and drown in it, then nobody's benefited from that. Sympathetic joy gives to equanimity mild serenity that softens its stern appearance, divine smile on the face of the enlightened one, not just cold and detached. There you go. So, a good study. I recommend this one. I won't go into it totally to its limit. Here, 4:43, 1.5 an hour. Good. So, this is where we want to get to. Equanimity is perfect and unshakable. And how does that come about? Rooted in insight, first of all, has to be accompanied by right view to make it like that, and not dull. Equanimity makes it the crown and culmination of the other three sublime states. The first three, if unconnected with equanimity and insight, may dwindle away due to lack of the stabilizing factor. So this is the point of doing both vipassana and samatha practices. So with samatha practices we can get the joy quite easily. If you just concentrate on a single object, joy does arise up. But it's not stable and it's easily lost. Only it takes one text. What? The mood's gone, and you take away the object and the mood, it disappears as well. But insight enables you to be able to take anything. You lose half your arm and go, okay, well I knew it was impermanent anyway, and it wasn't me anyway, it's part of my karma, and that's the way it goes. I wasn't expecting to live that long. So you get insight, and so you can keep equanimity through even very, very difficult conditions. It will always change, it will always be non-self. For example, the more that becomes, it opens up the mind rather than close down the mind. Samatha tends to close down the mind temporarily. Isolated virtues, if unsupported by other qualities which give them the needed firmness supplies, often deteriorate into their own characteristic defects. For instance, loving kindness without energy and insight may easily decline into mere sentimental goodness of weak and unreliable nature. It's just a kind of Valentine's Day metta, not really powerful. Okay, so just to give you an idea about some of the things that can be found. This can be found on Access to Insight, and I recommend it as a study. Says the Master, there's a quote from the Buddha: "For one who clings, motion exists, but for one who clings not, there is no motion. Where no motion is, there is stillness. Where stillness is, there is no craving. Where no craving is, there is neither coming nor going. Where neither no coming nor going is, there is neither arising nor passing away. Where neither arising nor passing away is, there is neither this world nor a world beyond, nor a state between. This verily is the end of suffering." A very important point that I discovered worth looking into was also that the Buddha had a very interesting view when people came along and talked about either equality, they just said that they were equal to the Buddha, or that they were superior to the Buddha and he was low, or they came along and said he was so superly high. And they wanted to argue on these points. And the Buddha pointed out that when people get insight in this way, bearing in mind that pride is a lot of the root of that, and ego is a root of that. Either I am the body, so I'm a man and you're a woman, or you're a woman and I'm a man. Like this, those equalities and inequalities, or the race thing, or gender thing, or culture thing, either equal, superior, or inferior. The Buddha said once you've seen through all of this and you see there's no self to have a value, you're free of that. And you won't see anyone as equal, you won't see anyone as superior, you won't see anyone, because you're not seeing anyone like this, you just see what is. It's very important. So when you get into this non-self, feeling transparent and dissolved and more like a holographic phenomena that's rolling on, you don't also suffer from inferiority, you don't suffer from superiority, and you don't suffer from falsely sense of equality as well, either one way or the other. It's very clearly described in the suttas how the Buddha said this, that people come along and say, "Are you born afterwards?" And he would look into his phenomena and say, "What, the body? You mean the feelings will be born, the perceptions, or the mind states, or the sixth sense thoughts will be born? What will be born? There's no one here before you. So actually there's no one sitting in front of you." They'll go, "Oh yeah, wait a minute." But he would point out that because there's no one there. People think there's one there. I'm like this and I'm really valuable, and they want to get their esteem higher and higher and be really super valuable or something, but you can only do that when you're clinging to a self. And when you cling to a self, you can put a value on it, but only as long as it's got solidity. This thing, there's nothing there. These problems about equality will stem a lot from identifying with the body. So when the mind clings and goes, it's a man's arm or it's a woman's arm, then you get these problems of clashing and opposition. And a lot of trouble is caused from that, or racial disharmony as well, when you identify with the body like that. In no one of these parts, actually, when you look at it, do you find a man or a woman. Perception. only when you identify with the body. And these two views, identifying with the body, the mind says, my body, I am the body. Where? Where you can't find yourself in there, or of there. It's the mind thing linking to the body thing. And this is the beginning of misperception, like that. So then the mind builds up a strong, powerful restlessness, ego and pride, or fed upness, or hate, or so then a lot of trouble arises from that. Okay. So I'd like to show you a quick video on this one. So when this relates to the map we've got here, so these are going to be showing you just about the Four Foundations of Mindfulness and those Five Aggregates, to a little bit of reviewing about those. And this actual map can be used to meditate with. You can put it in front of you, and when you have a physical experience, you can not hear. Or when you're with hearing, it's here. When you feel irritation in the body, you can touch here. And physically mapping out, you know, if you're like neutral in the mind at the moment, or if you notice that you're judging, or if you're irritated here, or if you feel pretty content, like here, or here. So getting used to this, it might be quite complicated at first, but I'm quite new to Manila, but I'm starting to recognise my way around, or recognise my way around this house, and it's the same way with these, except this is the map that you'll be with for the rest of your life. So if you get reasonably comfortable about this, you can start to put it away, and you recognise whereabouts you are on it, and stay within that, and mindfulness then develops stronger and stronger and stronger. You realise that life isn't a process that's constantly changing and going to get on and on and on and on and on. It's staying within here, and therefore you can develop mindfulness more and more powerfully. And then life gets simpler and not more and more complicated. So I'll show you this. It is a little bit blurry because of relative to this version. But just to show you the action of using hands physically on the laminate in order to practice tracking attention. And this is basically what this is about, is tracking attention. So I think there you go. Like it's a little bit blurry, but it's just as an introducer.
But also imagined event.
No, just go to something.
Also, pt3. So continuing on with explaining how theory and practice are joined together and explained by using this map. To introduce five aggregates. First aggregate is the body. Second aggregate is feelings. Third aggregate is perception. Fourth aggregate is the third foundation of mindfulness, sankharas, these are mind states here, and some of their tools that happen with them. And the fifth aggregate is here, which is the consciousness of sense organs. First foundation of mindfulness is this one, the body. Second foundation of mindfulness is these two, which is the feelings on the body, the pleasure and unpleasure scale, and mind mood in terms of pleasure, whether it's neutral, pleasant, pleased, or neutral or displeased. So these two are the feelings. First, second, third, perception, just the perception side of it, but it does include many things, including learned skills, which are all built up of memories. So all the memory banks that you've got, they include things like how to use strategies, how to use skills, language, reading, many things, driving, talking, walking, physical activities as well included. It's not just mind, but it's the physical positions and bodies, or faces pulled, and many things like this. All your general knowledge you learn through school is all included in this. So as perceiving and identifying, comparing and investigating all come under this heading, which is included here concluded in the third foundation of mindfulness. Also in the third foundation of mindfulness are the positive mind states and negative mind states, and these neutral ones which don't have a moral quality to them. They just take the focal area of the eye, ear, nose, or plural mind, the attention, and so on, and the intentions. So they can basically all be governed by positive states of mind or negative states of mind. Sometimes they will be accompanied by a combination of these six: aim, sustained aim, effort to aim or to take attention somewhere, decision or undecision, interest, right up to fascination and rapture, and willpower. So this is the third foundation of mindfulness. mindful states, collectedness, which is concentration, and the moral inhibitors that guard the mind. And these states of mind here, which are the opposites of the five hindrances. Five hindrances are desire, hate, energylessness, fed-upness, restlessness, and doubt here. And their opposites are confidence, equanimity, engagedness, energizedness, kindliness, and non-clinging. So there are many states of mind. These ones are all positive. So there's 52 altogether. And fourth foundation includes many formulas and teachings within the Dhamma, but in this case, just for practical terms, I've only used the six sense doors. Body sense door, that's all the skin, basically. And then eye door, the ear door, nose door, taste door, and the conceptual mind door. And I've given examples there, like 12 examples of the types of concepts that could come up, which are most of them are recalled, like items, subjects, people, music, film lines, for example, events and situations, moments that really happen, future considerations as well. So it's not all recalled, but planning, which is based on our previous ideas, speculating, questioning and envisaging, but also imagined events, imagined comments, imagined conversations, imagined, and also just dreaming is in there, and imagined fantasy scenes and so on like that. So those will all appear, one by one, if they do appear at the concept or like that. And the body also includes things like breathing, includes things like the elements like movement and hardness and temperature, and the postures. It's not only the skin just that it is. So those are all details of basically the skin. It includes the bones pressing on the inside of the skin. Then there are transitions like minor actions, like sniffing and reaching for things, swallowing or turning your head and so on, or between standing and sitting, or sitting and standing, minor actions that are in between. So that's the four foundations of mindfulness through which we see impermanence, we see the causes of suffering as they arise, and the irritations and so on, and the questions in the mind, how it turns around subjects, and also how we see that there isn't self contained in any one of these, and that there's a jigsaw puzzle made up of different individual momentary experiences of all of these, and that you can see what really is beautiful and what isn't beautiful, and how illusions are woven out of simple, minor, temporary, passing, pointillistic experiences like this. And using this map, we can also use our fingers to identify what's happening at the present moment, and then follow it and keep track and monitor the awareness as it takes different objects and as different objects present themselves. And this can be part of the training and the cultivation in the language of mindfulness.
There you go.
So the training is using the hands. So the next lesson I'll be going on to explain exactly how we do that.
Finished? There you go. Good. So a little bit there about repeating about the way that the four foundations and the five aggregates fit together. In meditation, it's not to be thinking too much and reflecting too much about all these things. It's something to hear as background sound. It's a bit like when you learn to drive. You know, you might hear a lot about the insides of the car and the workings of it, or the rules of the highway and so on. But when you actually drive, you just do the driving. And meditation, as we saw with 1 Moment's Mind, meditation